Right then, pull up a chair, grab a pint, or a cup of tea if you're feeling proper, and let me tell you about a lass who gave 2 fingers to societal norms and sailed around the entire bloody world disguised as a bloke. We're talking about Jeanne Baret, the ultimate botanical buccaneer and the first woman to circumnavigate the globe. That's right, you heard me. See, back in the 18th century, if you were a woman, your career options were pretty much limited to getting hitched, having a dozen kids, or maybe, if you were lucky, becoming a scullery maid. Exploration, science, ha! They'd have laughed you out of the pub faster than you could say terra incognita. But Jeanne Baret, she wasn't having any of that. Born in 1740, in the dusty, poverty-stricken fields of Burgundy, she wasn't exactly handed a silver spoon, more like a rusty trowel. Her folks were illiterates, day labourers, the kind of salt-of-the-earth people who worked until their backs broke. But Jeanne, bless her curious little heart, she had a fire in her belly for plants. Not just admiring them, mind you, but getting right in there, digging them up, understanding them. Now fate, in its wonderfully chaotic way, decided to throw a curveball. Jeanne ends up as the housekeeper, and more importantly the assistant, to a rather distinguished naturalist named Philibert Commerson. Now Commerson, he wasn't some stuffy academic locked away in a library. He was a proper botanist, a man who saw the world as one giant leafy laboratory. And he saw something in Jeanne. He saw her sharp mind, her uncanny knack with flora, and her tireless dedication. She wasn't just cleaning his quill pens. She was practically his right-hand woman in the dirt and the damp. Their relationship, it wasn't just professional. It was a partnership born out of a shared passion for all things green and growing. So picture this. It's 1766, and the bigwigs in Paris decide they fancy a bit of a gander at the rest of the world. Louis Antoine de Bougainville, a naval officer with a taste for adventure and a scientific curiosity, is given the nod to lead a grand expedition. The goal? To sail around the world, map new lands and, crucially, discover new species. Commerson, being the hotshot botanist he was, gets the invite to join. And that, my friends, is where Jeanne's story goes from remarkable to utterly legendary. Commerson, knowing he couldn't do without Jeanne's expertise, and probably having a bit of a twinkle in his eye for a bit of rebellion, hatches a plan. Or maybe it was Jeanne's idea, knowing her grit. She would disguise herself, cut her hair, bind her chest, don a pair of breeches and become Jeanne Baret, a man. Just another crew member among hundreds of rough and tumble sailors. The sheer audacity of it. Imagine the guts it took, knowing that discovery meant not just humiliation, but potentially a flogging, or worse, being dumped on some godforsaken island. But she did it. Why? Because the call of discovery, the lure of the unknown, the sheer, unadulterated thrill of it all, was stronger than any fear of reprisal. This wasn't just some joyride, mind you. The Bougainville expedition was a serious scientific undertaking. They weren't just looking for treasure chests, they were looking for knowledge. New plants, new animals, new peoples, new lands to put on the map. And Jeanne Baret, alongside Commerson, was right in the thick of it. They sailed, oh, how they sailed, down the coasts of South America, through the treacherous straits, to the lush, exotic paradise of Tahiti and across the myriad islands of the Pacific. Every port of call was a new opportunity for Jeanne to get her hands dirty. While the sailors were busy carousing or brawling, Jeanne and Commerson were scrambling up hillsides, slogging through swamps and pushing through dense jungles, all in the name of botany. Jeanne's contributions? Absolutely bloody pivotal. She wasn't just carrying Commerson's satchel. No, sir. She was identifying species, collecting samples, drying them, cataloguing them. Her keen eye for detail, her intimate knowledge of plants, born from years of hands-on experience, made her indispensable. She knew how to spot a rare specimen from a mile away, how to carefully extract it without damaging it, how to preserve it for the long journey back to France. Without her, A huge chunk of Commerson's collection simply wouldn't have made it. And here's a cracking little tidbit for you. By the way, get this. During the expedition, Jeanne Baret is credited with being the first European to identify and collect the vibrant, showy plant we now know as bougainville. Yes, that glorious, colourful vine that probably adorns half the balconies in the Mediterranean. Named after the expedition leader, sure, but it was Jeanne who first laid eyes on it and said, "Right, that's a keeper." Think about that for a second. While the men were busy sailing and fighting scurvy, a woman disguised as a man was discovering floral masterpieces that would one day grace gardens across the globe. Pure brilliance, that. But it wasn't all sunshine and exotic flowers. The journey was a brutal, relentless grind. Imagine being stuck on a ship for years with hundreds of men, all of whom are probably a bit rough around the edges, with nowhere to truly escape, and constantly living with the fear of your true identity being exposed. The constant threat of disease, scurvy, dysentery, fevers that could take you out in a heartbeat, the gales that threatened to rip the mast from the ship, the oppressive heat, the crushing loneliness, and the deception itself. Every day, every interaction was a performance. A slip of the tongue, a moment of weakness, a slightly too feminine gesture, and it could all come crashing down. What kind of moral clarity do you need to maintain that kind of charade for years? It was a decision driven by pure, unadulterated purpose, to pursue her passion, to see the world, to contribute to something bigger than herself. The trade-off? Constant vigilance, endless fear, and the suppression of her true self. Was it a stroke of genius or madness? A bit of both, perhaps, but undeniably a testament to her incredible resolve. She chose to act on her beliefs, even if it meant living a lie. Now, eventually, as these things often do, the jig was up. Accounts vary on how she was discovered. Some say she fell ill, others that she was found out on Tahiti, though the details are murky and often sensationalized by the male chroniclers of the time. Regardless, her identity as a woman was revealed. The reaction? Likely a mix of shock, amusement, and probably a fair bit of outrage from those who believed women had no place on such expeditions. However, by this point, she was too valuable, too much a part of the expedition's success to simply cast aside. And so, Jeanne Baret completed her circumnavigation of the globe. In 1769, the expedition finally returned to France, and Jeanne, now openly a woman, stepped back onto European soil, the first woman in recorded history to have circumnavigated the entire planet. Think about that for a moment. First woman ever. But here's the rub, isn't it? When the accounts of the voyage were published, guess who got all the glory? Bougainville, Commerson, the men. Jeanne's incredible achievement was largely swept under the rug, deemed an embarrassing anomaly, a footnote in a grand tale of male exploration. The societal norms of the 18th century couldn't quite reconcile a woman achieving such a feat. Her contributions were minimized, her courage ignored, her name barely whispered. It's like discovering the cure for a terrible disease, but because you wore the wrong socks, no one gives you credit. Infuriating, isn't it? Her legacy, though, it slowly but surely began to unfurl, much like one of her beloved plants reaching for the sun. In recent years, scholars, historians, and authors have been dusting off the old records, piecing together her story, and finally giving Jeanne Baret the recognition she so richly deserves. She wasn't just a woman who went on a trip. She was a pioneering botanist, a fearless adventurer, and a symbol of defiance against the suffocating constraints of her era. Her story forces us to ask, how many other women, equally brilliant, equally courageous, have been erased from the annals of history simply because they didn't fit the prescribed mould? Jeanne Baret's journey wasn't just about plants and maps. It was about agency, about purpose, about the sheer, unadulterated will to explore, to learn, and to contribute. no matter the obstacles. She teaches us that true integrity isn't about conforming to expectations, but about living your truth, even if it means strapping on a pair of trousers and pretending to be a bloke for 3 years. So, the next time you see a vibrant bougainvillea, or you hear about some intrepid explorer, spare a thought for Jeanne Baret, the woman who literally sailed around the world under the nose of the patriarchy and proved that a woman's place is wherever she damn well wants it to be. Stay curious, stay sharp, and stay just sober enough to remember it all. This was just a swig of history, and if it wasn't in your textbook, it bloody well should have been. And before you go, do a brother favour and like, share, and subscribe.